In the 1970s, singer-songwriter Elton John was one of the top musical talents to emerge in that decade. He made his U.S. debut on August 25, 1970, at Doug Weston's Troubadour Club in West Hollywood, California. He played a 6-night stand and earned rave reviews in the press. Less than 3 months later, he made the first of 2 appearances in the Inland Empire. Elton John's first IE appearance took place in November 1970 at Landis Auditorium on the campus of Riverside City College. The opening acts were Gene Redding, Otis Redding's cousin, and IE High Desert Band American Eagle. This was one of Elton John's more obscure appearances. Fortunately, a review of the concert appeared in the November 20th, 1970 edition of the RCC student newspaper, the Tiger Times. Reporter Bud Hovatler told of the concert under the headline, "Elton John Concert. He gave the crowd all it could handle." In part, Hovatler wrote, "The crowd was completely overwhelmed. Elton John was giving them something they hadn't experienced before. His superb piano playing and visual artistry proved to be too much for the crowd to handle." Anticipation and excited expectation mounted as people mingled around, talking to friends and waiting for Elton John. Finally, the curtains drew aside, and a figure dressed in red, white, and blue saddle shoes and yellow overalls, which had a little red light in the crotch that flashed when he pulled a string hanging from it. He wore a navy shirt with white stars and a dark blue velvet-like cape, a light blue English sporting hat, and round dark blue sunglasses. As the curtains opened, he scampered from the stage left curtain, past the bass amplifiers and the drums, across to a black grand piano. The figure sat down at the piano, looked at the microphone, and said, with a British accent, "Good evening, I'm Elton John." He then proceeded to play one of his most popular compositions, Your Song. Elton John is a very versatile artist. He can produce melancholic, lackadaisical compositions like Your Song, or songs that are analogous to life today, like in Border Song, and eerie, haunting ones such as 60 Years On. Or he can do a medley like the one he did at the end of his show, which incorporated various Beatle and Sly and the Family Stone songs. During this last number, Elton even stood on top of his piano to sing, which promoted more people to rush to the front of the stage to boogie and get a closer look at this bizarre performer. Elton's powerful tenor was never strained on the high notes, and always perfect on the low ones. It was always out front, never faltering, never drowned out. Because of his immense musical talent and increasing popularity, Elton John's production manager once said that the artist could very well be the songwriter of the 70s. He is being considered by some fans to be the one to fill the void left by the Beatles. IE musician William B. Overturf worked security that night and said this about the concert on his Facebook page. Greg Kofi Brown brought Elton to Landis Auditorium for a mere $1,800. Elton wanted to get a feel for the area prior to his upcoming Swing Auditorium performance. I think about all of us Ada Pi frat brothers did security that night. I remember being backstage on the left, if facing out, watching as Dee and Nigel lay down a beat, and looking at the opposite side of the stage to see Elton come to his piano, when a short, long-haired guy standing at my right shoulder said, "Exit, stage left," and proceeded to walk briskly across the stage, waving a greeting to the audience, and took his place at the piano. I didn't even realize it was Elton until that move. As Overturf mentioned, Riversider Greg Kofi Brown promoted the concert. Brown was an IE musician and was the RCC entertainment director from 1970 to 1973. On his Facebook page, Brown said this about the show. "I promoted Elton John's first U.S. concert at Riverside City College Landis Auditorium, California, December 1970. Up to this point, he had only done a couple club dates at the Troubadour. His agent, Chartwell Artist, only charged a fee of $1,500. His publicist, Norman Winter, also looked after Michael Jackson and would become a lifelong friend. Bill Brown did the sound for me. I let some Vietnam vets in wheelchairs smuggle a tape machine in to record the concert. They released a bootleg album called Country Comfort. You can hear my voice during the very last encore, of which Elton did many that night. When the agent who booked the support acts asked me if the vets could make a bootleg of the show, I didn't hesitate to say yes, as they had given their all for the USA and were generally looked at with disdain. Elton John lists this album in his discography, but says it was live at Santa Monica. The assistant dean, Mr. DeFrancisco, congratulated me on producing such an incredible event and added, "I didn't mind them smoking those funny-smelling cigarettes, but why did they have to stamp them out on the carpet?" We made only 5 hand-painted posters to promote the show. 1,400 tickets sold out in 2 days. Hollywood movie stars were calling the dean of college, Mr. Metcalf, to get tickets to the show. I was the entertainment director at RCC for 2.5 years. This was my first concert after a month starting on the job. Elton John's second IE concert took place on December 5, 1970, at the Swing Auditorium on the National Orange Show Fairgrounds in San Bernardino. In the November 17, 1970 edition of the San Bernardino Sun newspaper, it was reported that Elton John and Leon Russell had been booked to play a concert at the Swing. On November 19th, the first of 5 advertisements for the concert ran in the Sun newspaper. It had Leon Russell listed as the headliner and Elton John billed as special guest star. The opening band was Sweat Hog. The November 22nd issue of local radio station KMEN's mini magazine, The Came Entertainer, ran a short bio of Elton John. In the article, he named some of his favorite artists and musical influences. Among them was Leon Russell, who he considered a mentor and inspiration. In fact, Leon Russell visited Elton John backstage when he made his U.S. debut in August 1970 at the Troubadour Club in West Hollywood. They exchanged pleasantries and expressed mutual admiration for one another's music. On December 3rd, 2 days before the Swing concert, this article ran in the Sun newspaper. The article read in part, "Rock music artists Leon Russell and Elton John will appear in concert Saturday at 8 p.m. in the National Orange Show's Swing Auditorium. Russell has been given top billing on the show, which is being promoted by Al Tinkley and Lou Robin of Sight and Sound Productions. But John is currently attracting the most attention in rock music circles. John, a 23-year-old Englishman, although well known in England, did not make his U.S. debut until last August in Los Angeles. He is a singer, pianist, songwriter, and a showman. He incorporates considerable horseplay into his act and typically will show up for a concert in an outfit such as red-ribbed corduroy overalls, aluminum-colored boots, and a Donald Duck pin. His single record release of Your Song is currently making the climb up the national record charts. At last, it was the day of the concert, and the promoters ran one final ad in the Sun newspaper. By 1970, Eve Perez had graduated from Colton High School and was working in the Colton Joint Unified School District office. She was a regular at Swing Auditorium concerts. Eve attended shows by such artists as James Brown, The Supremes, the Jackson 5, and the infamous June 1970 Jimi Hendrix concert, where the exiting audience was tear-gassed by the San Bernardino police because of vandalism by those outside who couldn't get in. Eve went to the Leon Russell Elton John Swing concert with her sister and met up with other friends. She arrived at the concert early and knew to enter from a less-used side door where tickets were also being taken. She entered the venue and went directly to front row center. She knew the music of Elton John, but was not quite as familiar with Leon Russell's. She said the younger members of the audience seemed to be there for Elton, while the older hippie types were there for Leon. One thing about Elton John that made an impression on her was the fact that he was one of the rare music performers to unashamedly wear glasses. A bootleg recording made by an audience member allows us to see the set list of the concert. Elton led off with his current single, Your Song, and concluded with Burn Down the Mission, followed by a rousing medley of rock songs. Unfortunately, there was no Sun newspaper concert review. However, this article appeared in the December 7th edition. It reported that 14 people complained to the San Bernardino Police Department that their vehicles had been burglarized while parked across the street from the swing. In the December 8th sounding section of The Sun, it was reported that the Elton John-Leon Russell concert attendance was 4,800. All in all, it was considered a decent turnout for two emerging artists. Elton John would not return to play another concert in the Inland Empire for some 40 years. On November 5, 2010, he played the Citizens Business Bank Arena in Ontario, California. The occasion was the Union Tour, which reunited Elton John with Leon Russell. They had recently recorded an album together entitled The Union. The joint recording and tour demonstrated Elton John's continuing respect and admiration for Leon Russell. To date, this was Elton John's last concert in the Inland Empire.